With a falcon, wide open areas. They live in the open, not in the forest. And those that hunt from above, you know, we're all familiar with the peregrine falcon. They're a famous species because they almost became extinct here in the 60s and 70s due to DDT insecticide poisoning. There's a whole other story, you know, and it's one of the greatest success stories in wildlife history, conservation history, by the way. You know, what happened was, long ago they were using these powders and pesticides. They were spreading it on crops because the insects eat the crops. So let's, you know, kill the bugs. Okay, fine. So they dust the fields and they put this powder all over the. Relax. They put down the DDT, the poison. Well, the bugs, you know, obviously went there and ate it, and they got the poison in their system. Scratch an itch. So they have bugs carrying poison around in their system. You know, whether they're still alive before they die or when that bug dies, what eats the bug? You know, small bird. Well, what eats birds? Certain species of hawk, but primarily falcons. So the falcon catches the bird that's got this poison in its system and it eats it. And one might not do it, but you know, doing it in the same, if you're in the same habitat in the same area and you're hunting over that same farmer's fields day in, day out, year after year, you're taking in poison. It's building up in your system, bird after bird after bird. Now, it wasn't enough to kill the peregrine falcons, but it poisoned or polluted the reproductive system in a way. What happened was it made the females unable to incubate their eggs because it made the eggshells very thin. So when they laid the eggs, the female naturally, when she finishes a clutch or a group of eggs, she sits on them and keeps them warm with her body. Incubation. Well, when they were doing that, they were crushing the eggs because the eggshells were too thin. Now, what made that situation so tricky is how would you ever know? The peregrines weren't falling out of the sky dead, so nobody really noticed. So year after year, what's happening is the breeding birds are getting older, right? And there's a certain point where they can't reproduce anymore. There are no new young peregrine falcons coming along to replace them in the breeding population. And they hit a point where the species crashed. No more young peregrines, no more peregrines being produced. They almost became extinct, especially east of the Mississippi River. So luckily, falconers and wildlife biologists got together and came up with a brilliant idea. Let's breed these things in captivity and then take them out to the areas where they used to live and release them and try to reestablish the population. They did it, and it was successful. And peregrine falcons are actually, there are more peregrine falcons around right now than there were before the problem began. So it really is one of the greatest conservation stories that's really ever happened.